Shabbos. Lechu. Lechu. You can do this from home with me. Lechu. But I'm going to sing the rest of the words. Lechu. Nerananala Adonai. Lechu. Arya. Let's all yishenu. 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 Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Lechu nerananala Adonai. Lechu nariya let's all yishenu. Lechu nerananala Adonai. Nariya let's all yishenu. Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Ki el gadol. Ki el gadol Adonai umelech gadol al kol Elohim. Nekadma vana b'toda. Oh, bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Nekadma vana b'toda. Bizmirot nariya nariya lo. Lechu. Lechu. You can do it too. Lechu. Lechu. Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. I'm very happy to be with you here tonight. You know, it's funny. We've been experimenting with our with all of the different ways we do Shabbat in person, online, in person inside, which means that we have a wireless connection so we can live stream, outdoors, which means that we don't have a solid wireless connection, which means that we don't live stream, which places an even bigger emphasis on the nights when we're here like this, when it's just us over the waves of the etherwebs. And this is like the one holdover from the pandemic that we actually kind of like and don't want to let go of, which is this low-key musical online only service, which, because it's designed for online, means that we can invite in anybody who is anywhere in the world and bring in guests without airfare or hotels. And we will be doing that tonight again, welcoming Arya Marvazi to join us from the Jews of Color Initiative to tell us more about that work. So I'm happy to be here with you. I'm a little sad that I can't hear you and see you, but I look forward to reading the chat later. So I hope you've already said who you are and where you are and how you are, and I'll reach out later. We're gonna light some candles and bless some wine. So wherever you are, maybe grab something that you would like to bless to drink. Oh, come on. All right. We're going to do these little guys down here. We're going to do this up here. Oh, I'm rooting for you, little candle. You got this. You got this. You can do it. A little candle that could. I want to give you a closer view. To just take a second here and absorb the light and the energy of these candles. And all the funky, cool, Kabbalistic incantations and mantras behind the candles. Take a moment and just catch your breath. Find yourself breathing a little more spaciously into your belly. Breathing in through your nose and exhaling slowly. Not like unnaturally slowly, but just bringing some attention to your breath. Your body is still. It's the beginning of Shabbos. It's the beginning of a day where you don't have to do anything. You could just be a puddle if you wanted. You could also go to services tomorrow with us if you wanted. But this is the moment to transition from that frenzied headspace of all the things that need to be done to that quiet headspace of everything is good in this moment. Everything's okay. There's nothing else I need to do. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Take another few breaths to just inhale those candles. Amen. L'chaim. Jumping the gun. Vayhi erev, vayhi boker, yom hashishi. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי, לחיים, clink. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen, amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon, hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'i kodesh, zecher letziat mitzrayim. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, עם כל העמים, בשבת קודשך, Be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch ata Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. Clink. So, oh my goodness. Okay. Wine on the keypad. Hold, please. I did this earlier with my children, with grape juice, of course. And I have a new theory on why Kiddush is so long. And my theory is that a millennium before the marshmallow experiment was done, Jews had a sense of it's good to teach children how to be patient with something sweet and delicious in their very hand, and to make them hold on to it and not drink and Borei Priagaf, and can I drink? No, there's another blessing. Oh, here it comes. And it's like 2 paragraphs long. But you know what? It actually works. And then here we all go, bottoms up. L'chaim. Yesterday, Thursday, was the 33rd day of the Omer. We've been counting the Omer every day, right? Since Passover. And we will do it again later tonight. And Friday today was 34, so you know what's coming tonight. And there's kind of like a hero of Lag BaOmer, interestingly. And it's Shimon Bar Yochai. Shimon, who is considered a great tzaddik, a great holy wise man, credited with the writing of the sort of central mystical text of Judaism, the Zohar. Even though the Zohar sort of emerged in Europe in the Middle Ages, it is credited with Shimon Bar Yochai having written it way back in Talmudic times, or pre-Talmudic times. And he was a student of Rabbi Akiva, like one of the remaining students of Rabbi Akiva. The first 33 days of the Omer are considered kind of sad, like mournful, because during the first 33 days of the Omer, way back when, almost all of Rabbi Akiva's students died of a horrible plague that was brought upon them because they didn't treat each other with respect. So the lesson there is right on the surface to be learned. And he had like a couple students left over, and it was those students that bequeathed the rest of the tradition to us. One of them was Shimon Bar Yochai. And there's a story about how he kind of became this great holy man. So he was talking smack about the Roman government, and it got back to the Roman government that he had been speaking ill of his occupiers, and they wanted to come kill him. And so he hid in a cave with his son. And a carob tree grew up in the cave to feed them. And they took off their clothes so that their clothes wouldn't wear out while they were in the cave. And they buried themselves up to their neck in sand so they wouldn't be naked. And they studied Torah. And they studied Torah day and night for over a decade. And then Elijah the prophet comes and says, the emperor is dead. You don't have to worry about them coming to get you, coming to kill you. Nobody cares anymore. You're safe. So you can come out of the cave. And so he and his son come out of the cave, and they see the sun for the first time in 12 years, and they see a man plowing the field. And they look at this man, and they say something judgmental and condescending, like, look at this guy, forsaking the world to come for the physical world, like we've been studying Torah all this time, but this guy, look at him with his hoe plowing, and their eyes look at this guy and incinerate him and his field. Somebody in Minyan yesterday commented that perhaps this is where the myth about Jews and lasers got started. Anyway, it's a myth. It's a story. The point is, God then says, Shimon, what are you doing? Did I bring you out of the cave to destroy my world? Go back into your cave. And so he and his son go back in the cave, and they bury themselves again, and they study Torah for another 12 years. And then when they come out, they see somebody carrying bread. And they say, what are you doing? And he says, I'm carrying bread home. I'm going to feed my family. It's Shabbat. And they said, oh, tell us more. And he said, well, I've got 2 loaves. One is for Shamor and one is for Zachor. One is for remembering the Sabbath, or keeping the Sabbath, and the other is for guarding the Sabbath. There are two places in the Torah where it says you should guard the Sabbath, shamor et Yom HaShabbat, and there's another place where it says you should remember the Sabbath, zachor et Yom HaShabbat. And shamor is like all the don'ts. Don't work. Don't check your email. Don't do things that make you stressed out. And zachor is like do, eat, drink, pray, have fun, make love, go for walks, sing. Do live in the world as if it is perfect for one day, to just remember what that feels like, And so the guy says, I'm bringing 2 loaves, shamor, zachor. And Shimon Bar Yochai looks at his son and says, my God, it is inspiring how precious the commandments are to these Jewish people. And it's clear that he has made tshuva. It's clear that he went from being this person who thought that holiness was burying yourself up to your neck, disconnecting your head from your body, disconnecting the sort of spiritual from the physical, and judging everybody who has to make their way in the physical world. That was sort of what he thought. That was 1.0. That was spirituality 1.0. And God said, wrong, go back in the cave. And so when he comes out the second time, he has an appreciation and a love for people who in this world feed their families and make it work and find spirituality not separate and apart from that, but inside of that. And he goes on to become like the greatest Jewish mystic who ever lived. So we honor him. We honor him on Lag BaOmer. It's like his yahrzeit. People go and visit his grave in Israel. And we make bonfires and sing songs and roast food. That's the tradition. So in honor of Shimon Bar Yochai, and in honor of all the wise people in our life who aren't necessarily clergy people, but they're just people who you can feel like they live their spirituality in the way that they live their lives, in their daily lives, in putting bread on the table, and getting on the train, and getting their kids in the car, This is for you. Or zarua la tzadik uleishre simcha. Or zarua la tzadik uleishre simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Yalalai lai lai ay 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 ay. I think that spirituality 1.0 is a mistake that a lot of people make, which is that thinking that being spiritual means being strong in a way that means overriding your emotions. Like you have emotions, but no, to be truly spiritual is to be in control of your emotions, to be able to, sort of dominate them and override them. And I think that 2.0 is realizing, no, it's actually being with them. It is being with them. It is being present to them, not overriding them, but actually being able to see them and acknowledge them and interrogate them and go, what's that about? And I wonder why I'm feeling that way, and begin to lean into the intuition the underlying feeling that is, producing whatever that bigger emotion is that's pointing you in a direction, and to follow it, because there's Torah in there, So, Ana bekoach, please with strength, we say to God, help us release, tatir tzarura, let us let go of all of the things that are holding us in a sort of straitjacket of what we think we're supposed to feel, and actually just let us be, let us feel. Ana bekoach gedulat. Sorry. Ana bekoach again. Ana bekoach gedulat Yemincha tatir tzerura Kabel rinat amecha Sagreinu tareinu nora Ana bekoach Ana bekoach gedulat Yemincha tatir tzerura Kabel rinat amecha Sagreinu tareinu nora. We sing Nagibor Na 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 gibor na 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 gibor na 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 gibor na 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 gibor dorshe yechudcha dorshe yechudcha kevavat shomre. Usually Henry does this on the mandolin. Nagibor na 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 Hagibor na 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 Hagibor na 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 Hagibor na 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 Hagibor dorshe yechudcha dorshe yechudcha kevavat shomre. All right, so I'm excited to introduce the person I'll be dialoguing with tonight, Arya Marvazi. So Rabbi Stephen actually made this introduction, and but Arya and I actually have shared a lot of the same spaces over time, basically in different decades, which makes me feel awfully old, but nonetheless. Arya is the Senior Director of Programs for the Jews of Color Initiative. He is a first generation born to Iranian Jewish immigrants. You'll hear a little bit more about that. For nearly 15 years, Arya has been a Jewish professional in many different Jewish contexts, Hillel on campus, Hillel International, JQ International, and has also been involved as a lay leader in different Jewish organizations like the Joint Distribution Committee Entwine, JPRO, American Jewish Committee, the Schusterman ROI community. He earned his BA in psychology at University of California in San Diego and has an MA in organizational behavior from NYU. So we recorded this a little bit earlier today, and I'm excited to share this conversation with you. Welcome, Arya. Hello, Arya.
Hi there, Lizzie. How are you?
I am well. I am thrilled it's Friday. I am
The two
thrilled
of
it's
us.
it's been a long week and I'm happy to be here in this conversation with you. Um, and so I think this is probably the first time most people in our community are meeting you. We have heard and talked about the Jews of Color initiative, but I'm actually wondering if maybe, I just gave your whole bio with, all of the illustrious, that's the word I'm looking for,
Great.
organizations that you have worked with and, all over the country, including here in Chicago. But would you like just tell us about you, sort of like where you come from, who are you, and how did you get into the work that you are doing?
My pleasure. And thank you again for the opportunity. I got to give some love to Rabbi Stephen Philp in absentia, who made this possible. So thanks, Stephen. Hope you're having fun out there. Hi, everyone. My name is Arya Marvazi. My pronouns are he and him. And I am a first generation Iranian American. I was born and raised here in Los Angeles, which my community affectionately calls Tehrangeles, California. That's Tehran in LA. And I give this like sort of spiel often. So I was thinking about how to introduce myself in a way that's a little bit more like around the senses. And I was thinking around how I grew up in a home where Gugush, who is our share, like the Iranian share, if you will, who is like still currently in her 60-year-long career and performing. Gugush music was playing in the home, and there was like this delicious smells of saffron and ghormeh sabzi, which has like 19 different spices being made for Shabbat. And it was a home where I watched my parents attempt to preserve everything that in essence, they were forced to leave behind culturally, identity-wise, communally speaking, in Tehran when the Islamic Revolution happened. And it was a really rich, beautiful, often challenging upbringing to both have this like gorgeous cultural identity and racial and communal identity, but then also be an American child, if you will, and try and reconcile the value differences between these two cultures and what it meant to just be a child of immigrants that don't know the American system. That's like politically, economically, financially, in every sense. So that really colors everything about me. Today, I'm a proud queer Jew. I'm like 15 years into my universe of Jewish communal service. Much love to Hillel for that. And whereas my journey of Jewish communal service started with more of like what we would call traditional Jewish communal ecosystem before. In the past 6 years, it's been more around like inclusive and equitable Jewish life. And I was most recently at JQ International, that's Jewish Queers, working on the healthy intersection. And today, I'm Color Initiative, everything that uplifts landscape nationally speaking, making traditional programs. So that's the nutshell.
Love that. I love that. And it's that there's a would need to say all the things it says, things work and things that people are people their neighbors as themselves. The Torah has to say it. So as the initiative to help be more equitable. So that says to me, there was a. Can you talk a little bit about Jews of solve?
Absolutely. So we've speak few years and what that has been. One of the first was the drafting of counting inconsistencies. Our first body of research, it was in 2019, and it was a meta-analysis of, I believe, somewhere between 20 to 25 Jewish communal population studies, all of which in some magical way and or afterthought either just did not count Jews of color whatsoever, meaning we weren't even collecting that information or cognizant enough to identify that there are Black, Brown, Asian, Latino, and Native American, Pacific Island, like different Jews of different racial backgrounds. But beyond that, where there was the numbers and there was any sort of a reflection of like what sort of percentage of Jews and Jewish life are we able to say are Jewish based on these data studies, it was somewhere between 12 to 15%, which means out of the 7.2 million Jews in America, we're looking at nearly like, and then there is the universal reality of the entire world based on globalization is going to go towards a greater multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-faith, multi-racial place. And the Jewish world, and or is, I can't say that, I would say rather is maybe not focused on this, thinking about this as we think about Jewish continuity and Jewish education and Jewish representation and Jewish leadership. So counting inconsistencies was like the body of work that sort of woke everyone up to, well, look at us, we're here, right? Just last year in August, we released Beyond the Count. That was the second body of research, and that was perspectives and lived experiences of Jews of color, all understanding sort of what is your experience in Jewish communal life. The staggering and unfortunate reality was that over 80% of respondents either racism or some participating in Jewish life as it is, and we'll invite everyone to cozy up to it. It's on our website, the jewsofcolorinitiative.org. It's called Beyond the Count. And so this second research showed us that people are not welcome, our infrastructure communities are aware Jews of color exists, and then when they do come to participate, the experiences are extremely challenging in predominantly white Jewish spaces. And so then there's this about this, how do we remove this? This is the Jewish is attempted, it's very really racial, but an I mean, just about 1% might be, and there are not, when 12 to 15 of the population identify us.
Realized awakening, you know, like I think just of it's been studying themselves, right? America for a long time,
Sure.
You know, in the Pew studies, we're always, you know, like we're a piece of the bigger story of America, and then we study ourselves and we tell stories about ourselves and Jewish continuity. And how did it even come to pass, first of all, you know, that there were these massive blind spots in those studies to begin with, and like how did they get, like who noticed? How did that happen? That suddenly it was like, wait a second, we're missing 12 to 15%, maybe 1 million people.
Yeah. Well, I should open that answer by saying Ilana Kaufman, our executive director and founder, is the right person to answer that question. I'll speak anecdotally to the stories that I and about the together of Jews across the sector. I think it was at the Leichtag Foundation once at a roundtable discussion about like, we're here, we care, we're invested, we are leading. And we're looking at this sector that is completely absent to our existence, to our sort of arc of leadership, to our, you know, capacity for greater impact. And it was, and I think Leichtag was one of the larger founders, first investors in the nation, if you will, hosting that conversation, and then of course investing fiscally afterwards. But it was the individuals that identify as JOCs and that were existing leaders that came to a roundtable and that began this dialogue around, we have to do something about this. And for us to remain in the status quo is for us to look at a Jewish communal landscape and sector that is irrelevant to the future of Jewish life. And that's where I know a lot of the seedlings were planted and where the momentum began. What's interesting now is we are just on and establishing the organization as a 503. It'll be, I think, the third JOC-led nonprofit sector of over thousands of organizations. And one could say that's almost irrelevant how incremental that is. And another might say, well, as a result of the work over the course of the past 5 years alone, the number of JOC organizations now empowered by, the grant making, by the focus, by the sort of uplifting and empowering.
Long way to go. There's a long way to. Can I ask you, like, what does it feel like to be doing this work, to be kind of at the vanguard? I'm like, oh God, there's so depressed. Vanguard is happening now in 2020. Should have the 60s, or the 70s, or, but okay, great.
Just came up, and all of us are scoffing and huffing and just in disbelief that this is a national conversation. And it struck me that maybe the real issue is to think, can you believe that all of these countries are ahead of America and America is behind in this way? When the truth is, like, well, hundreds, it's infuriating, and it's really unfortunate, the reality that these are the conversations that we're having. I will say, from an angle, it is incredibly empowering and inspiring to see that individuals in positions of power, and I don't mean to say unfortunately, but just realistically, most often those are funders in our space, have heard this call, have turned, not their backs, but their faces and hearts towards this movement. And not just with JOCI, but across the sector, and are investing in ways that they know are long-term. It's heavy work. It was heavy work fighting homophobia in the Jewish community. It's heavy work fighting racism in the Jewish community. And from an angle, there is, I've known, as a self-proclaimed nonprofit Jewish communal lifer, it's very hard to separate the personal and professional. And I go to sleep thinking about my work, and I wake weekends. But I know that we are doing some of
I know that feeling. Man, do I know that
you
feeling.
would, Rabbi Lizzie. You absolutely would, of all people. We know that we are doing the work that is essential to a vibrant, inclusive, and truly sort of Jewish life and leadership that is reflective of Jewish peoplehood. And should we not be focused on that with every fiber of our being for the future of Jewish life? So, yeah.
Amen. Well, okay, so you brought up current events a minute ago, and in one context, and I was thinking about, this horrific shooting that just happened in Buffalo over the weekend, and the 18-year-old shooter was a self-proclaimed white supremacist, and he believed in a theory that I feel like if you didn't know about it a week and a half ago, you know about it now, the Great Replacement theory, in which, as the theory goes, Jews are somehow masterminding the replacement of white Christian Americans, because I'm not replacing myself here as I sit in my smoke-filled back room. I'm trying to replace the legacy Americans, who of course are white non-Jews, with immigrants like your family, Arya, and African Americans and other non-legacy Americans to displace the legacy Americans. And so this theory it's sort of simultaneously racist and anti-Semitic and stupid. I'm sort of like, really? This, I mean, but okay. A lot of people believe this. So it also reveals the ways in which the Jewish community is actually seen as bound up, sort of inextricably connected with other minority communities in America in a very screwed up way. Are, in fact, and I actually for growth. You could maybe reflect on that, talk about that a little bit from where you sit.
Yeah, I don't mean to make light of anything that you just mentioned, but it strikes me as you articulated it that if it were Jews that were to bring people of diverse backgrounds into the center of the world and to, like, in essence, give them power. That would be a beautiful thing if if Jewish people were always focused on empowering diversity, right? Not to replace anyone else, but because that's necessary and valuable. I would say it is one of the greatest wins of white supremacy for us as Jewish community members to believe that the fight against anti-Semitism has to be placed against, because they want us to believe that those two things cannot be fought together, and as a community that cares about these two things as necessary and relevant. But it is to their benefit that we are so busy fighting around, well, we can't really care about JOCs right now because it's so much more important to care about anti-Semitism right now. Look at what's happening around the world. And the truth is, yes, and both and recognize that the individuals in your community are reflecting also a portion of the individuals that are experiencing anti-Semitism as well, right? One is not mutually exclusive of the other. One should never be set in competition with the other. So this is the type of thing that arises for me, at least personally, as it relates to Buffalo. One is just that sort of misconception that one must be prioritized over the other, which I think is so wrong and such a win for white supremacy if we were to think in that mindset. The second is, as an Iranian American, a first generation Iranian American, and as an individual who proudly identifies as a Jew of color, I also am very much an ally to Black and Brown and Asian and Latino Jews that may not have in certain moments white passing privilege that I do. And in certain spaces, it's interesting when I think about, like, sort of in all white spaces, I very much feel like a Jew of color. In all Black spaces, then in essence, I am an ally to a Black Jew or a Black person of color. And that identity sways. And that's one of the reasons why we too, as an organization, don't have a set express definition of Jew of color. It is a moving identity and it is an evolving one. And some Mizrahi and Sephardi do identify with that and some don't. And that's fine. Some people of color, some Black individuals don't like the term Jews of color and don't identify with that. All of that is okay, so long as we realize that there is a universe where individuals with racialized identities in America are experiencing a different Jewish world than, white Jews, which is real, even though race is a social construct, and we need to address that. And those things come up when I think about the horrific, moments of this past weekend and week, and several years and decades, for that matter.
I'm so glad you said what you said about sort of identity, and racial identity being sort of a moving target. Did you say moving target, or like a sort of
about right?
Because I think that's something as a white, Ashkenazi descendant Jew, there are times when I am in spaces and feel deeply Jewish, and Jewish being my ethnicity and basically my race, that's why my family is in America, is because we were racialized as Jews over there. And now here I get to, I get for the most part to be white. And that comes with its own, set of privileges, but also we actually just last night had a whole conversation with a group of people in the community, members of Mishkan, who did an anti-bias training with members of the community. But one of the questions we were talking through is what has that identity, of privilege or whiteness, having that racialized identity put on top of me here in this country, what does that cost me? What relationships am I not deeply inside of, or which people do I not really understand because I have been racialized this way, and sort of accepted in certain places, and welcomed in certain places, that others are actually not welcomed into. And how can I become more sensitive in all of the ways that I've actually been part of the problem too. And so I was actually, if 15% let's say 20%, somewhere between 12 and 20% of Jews in this country are Jews of color, self-identified in families that include a person of color. So that's, the majority are still white, right? Is that sort of the implication? So I guess my question is what do you want people who look like me, to know walking away from, this conversation? Like, what do you want us to think
Yeah.
about?
I love the question. And with humility, I'm gonna answer it with what do I want you to do. But
Great.
just like from the angle of what I want everyone to know is what's in these studies, and please do check them out on our website. And they're so powerful because it just colors everything we've talked about in a much more detailed way. But what I want people to do is to consider, how for them they may support leadership of Jews in the space they belong to. In a dear friend and who's a Jew of color and who's been in this space for much longer than I have, and who has
He did a training with us a couple months ago.
That makes a lot of sense. Nate said something that has always been in my head, but he said it so much better than I could, and it was this. I've heard, I've been at the initiative, but I am for leaders from community. Listen, we care about racism, we care about inequality, and we've said that about it. And like I aren't to our space. It's not necessarily a new system, a new structure, a new project input. So it's not like sometimes I think my do is have the conversation internally if we would like to see our spaces evolve to be farther representative and inclusive of Jews of color, of queer Jews, of Jews of gender diverse identities, of Jews of differing abilities, all the ways that we care about justice and inclusion, that we have with members from those communities to say, what haven't we done? How have you felt? What might we do better? And that type of thinking, I think, moves us to a different place, because I do recognize that if there aren't JOC leaders in most Jewish communal spaces, which would mean then there are white leaders thinking about how to best serve Jews of color, then we're still missing the point. And certainly by any means, anyone who's in this, it's like, please feel free to. We've got a wonderful consultants. Our work is not specifically DEI, it's actually empowering and uplifting Jews of color in the Jewish communal landscape, but we've got a whole wonderful list of individuals that can help. But I would say the last thing to close the thought is just remember that there is not as with so many elements of our Jewish world, there isn't an end date and there isn't a checkbox of we have done this and it is done well, right? It is, we are going to continue having the conversations about how do we make Jewish life the most vibrant, inclusive, and equitable until forever. So if we can maintain that moving mindset, I think we're also all better off for it. I see you muted. Oh, okay.
Can you hear that sound? May it be so. May it be so. From your mouth to God's ears. Thank you so much for being in this conversation. And a bit of Shabbat us at Michigan.
Thereafter, but I'm hoping for it.
Great. Can't wait. All right.
Shabbat shalom.
Well, what you missed there was me thanking him and saying, come to Mishkan Shabbat sometime the next time you're in Chicago, and him saying, I will, I hope I will, maybe this summer, if not this summer, next summer, and, love fest all around. Assuming that our recording of that didn't skip at all, you should be able to hear the whole conversation uninterrupted on our podcast feed next week. Thank you, Arya, again. So we're going to transition now into prayer for healing, and this week I can count at least 4 people in our community who had surgery or who are in the hospital or who had some sort of a scare, who are going through challenges, mental, physical. I mean, if we sort of like, if we open it up even further to include, maybe you didn't have something acute happen, but you're just struggling. There are a lot of folks in the community right now who I know are in that place. And so I want to send you love. And there are a lot of folks in the community who are thinking about somebody they love, who are in that place. And so if you want to put their name in the chat and just allow everybody who's here, everybody who is still here, to pray for each other. So please go ahead and put people's names in the chat. I also want to, especially on the heels of that conversation, send love and healing to the Black community in Buffalo. And not just Buffalo, but all over this country, and here in Chicago too, and here in our community as well. Something that we talk about is like race isn't real, but racism is real. And we need to heal ourselves if we are going to heal or cure people in our country from some of the truly misguided and hateful ideas that lead people to the kind of violence that we saw last weekend. And we don't get there by hating on them. We actually get there by loving harder. And so I want to send love. I want to send love to our Black family and friends and community. No one should ever have to feel fear because of something as beautiful and also as completely out of control as the color of our skin, the way we present to the world. And so as we pray this Hashkivenu, lie us down in peace, raise us up in peace, we pray for an end to racism and race-based hatred in all forms, and in ourselves. We pray that we can heal ourselves from this, from the racism we've learned in our own culture, and bring forward a kind of transcendent love that places people's humanity first. Guide us with wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Hamideinu shomeinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred and complete, speedy healing and recovery for everybody who's struggling. Let's count the Omer.
Le'Hashem yichud, HaKadosh Baruch Hu u'shchintei, Hineni muchan u'mezuman, Lekayem mitzvat aseh, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Sheva Shabbatot Temimot tiyena, Sheva Shabbatot Temimot tiyena.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Hayom chamisha u'shloshim yom shehem chamisha shavuot laomer. Today is 35 days, which is 5 weeks of the Omer. All right. And with that, let us remember those who have come before us. And take a moment now for Mourner's Kaddish. Go ahead and put the names in the chat of anybody you're remembering tonight. All of this week, we've been saying the names of the 10 people who died in Buffalo, who include Roberta Drury, Margus Morrison, Andre McNeil, Aaron Salter, Geraldine Tolley, Celestine Cheney, Hayward Patterson, Catherine Massey, Pearl Young, and Ruth Whitfield. May their memories be blessings. And may the memories of all of the people you love be blessings. I'll stand. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah. V'almad divrei chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata tamiran be'alma ve'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. May their memories be blessings. All right. So I want to say good night and good Shabbos to everybody. It's amazing how quickly an hour goes by. For me, I'm curious. I'm actually genuinely curious. Did that go by quickly for you? How do you feel? We'll be on tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. at JCYS on Lawrence. We will be live streaming it. It will be on our YouTube channel. Over the summer, we're basically, for the next month, we'll be on every week here or there, Friday night, Saturday morning, online. Just check our calendar. And you should know, as we head into the summer, we're adopting a Shemitah posture. We've been talking about Shemitah all year because we are in the Shemitah year. The Torah describes, actually in this week's Parsha, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. In this week's Parsha, the Torah describes the importance of observing Shemitah. Of course, it's like a an agricultural practice in the land of Israel every 7 years that you let your land lay fallow. But nonetheless, we are using the idea of letting your land lay fallow so that it may regenerate and sort of recalibrate, come back into alignment and harmony with itself and nature. We are inspired by that, trying to take it easy over the summer, which is to say we're going to do our Shabbat schedule. In July, we're actually taking it even lighter on Shabbat. We'll do Friday nights, but not Shabbat mornings. But for the next month and over the summer, expect fewer programs actually from Mishkan. And so I invite you to lean even harder into Shabbat, whether it's being with us in person or online or listening to the podcast feed afterward or listening to Morning Scroll. And we look forward to regenerating and being here with even stronger presence and ideas and energy on the other side of it, just in time for high holidays. So Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa B'chatzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa B'chatzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. Ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora. Vehu haya vehu hover vehu yehyeh b'tifara. Vehu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshilo leachmira. Veli Reshit, Veli Tachlit, Velo Ha'oz V'Hamisra. Vehu Eli V'chai Goali, V'tzur Chavli V'etzara. Vehu Nisi Umanosli, V'nat Kosi V'yom Ekra. Ay, ay, ay. בידו אפקיד רוחי והייתי שם ואעירה ועם רוחי גוויתי אדוני לי ולא יירא. בידו אפקיד רוחי והייתי שם ואעירה ועם רוחי גוויתי אדוני לי ולא יירא. Yeah.